Welcome to the Florida PowerShell Users Group, and I'm Ed Wilson. I'm the Microsoft scripting guy. And tonight I'm going to talk a little bit about PowerShell best practices, in particular PowerShell 3.0. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to kind of like show you a couple of scenarios. I'm going to show you some of my favorite PowerShell 3 tricks, and they're kind of like, yeah, in relationship to PowerShell best practices. I mean, I'm not going to talk about, constructing functions and doing parameter validation and all that kind of stuff, because that gets a little heavy. I've written a book on it, PowerShell best practices. I'm actually revising that book right now. So if you want that kind of low-level detail information, I'd recommend that you get that book. But what I'm going to talk about today, is just kind of like playing around with PowerShell. So I'm going to go ahead and share my PowerShell console. I'm not going to be like writing any scripts or anything. We're just going to be working interactively. And the neat thing about this is that when I do this, I mean, you're going to see that it's like really powerful. And in fact, I know that the people that are in the room here, Mike Robbins, and Ron, and Max Moob, and some of the other people, you guys already know this, but but you might pick up a few tricks and you might learn some stuff that's kind of fun. And Jose as well, yeah. Hi, Jose. All right, so so I've got PowerShell, and that should be what you're seeing right now. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to first of all store my credentials in a variable. No, I'm not using the web client. I actually have Link installed on my machine. So so what I'm going to do is most of the time whenever I open up PowerShell, one of the first things I actually do is actually you create a credential object and I store it in a variable. I've even toyed with putting that in my profile. I haven't gotten around to doing that yet, but it's simple enough to do. I mean, I can create a credential, a PS credential object in like 2 lines of code, so it's not a big deal. Anyway, so $credential, and I always use $cred. It's just simple, makes stuff easy to do. And once I do this, then I just say get credential. And tab expansion works for this. That makes it easy to type. Then the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to specify my domain, which is I am Mr. Ed. I am Mr. Ed /administrator. Now, the neat thing about this, I'm not logged on as administrator. I'm not logged on with administrator rights. I'm just logged on as a normal user. But this gives me the ability to run commands and to work stuff, with other servers and stuff in the domain. So so now I type in my password, and let me shut up for a second because it's real embarrassing if you type your password in wrong and then nothing else works. So hold on just a second. I'm going to be quiet and let me think about typing this password. Okay, press enter, say groovy. All right, so that works.
Hey, Ed.
Yeah.
Just to let you know, David and Mike will helping the users on their chat, okay?
Okie
So
dokie.
when it's time for, if they have any question, we'll route it to you again, okay?
Okie dokie, that's cool. You could just like interrupt and say, hey, dude, we got a question, so.
Exactly, okay?
I mean, this is like kind of informal. This is like, just a user group meeting. It's not like NBC or CBS or something, so.
No problem.
All right. So I've got this credential object stored. So I'm going to say like $cred, press enter. And I did that just to verify that my object actually got created properly. And so you can see I am Mr. Ed's the username, and my password is a secure string. Now I can actually decrypt that secure string if I need to, but dude, I'm not going to go into all that. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to import my Active Directory module. And so I like to use import module, Active Directory. Now, I don't have to spell Active Directory out if I don't want to. In fact, quite often I'll just use a wildcard, do something like this. Now, you might ask, well, dude, like, why are you like importing your Active Directory module? Or you might not say dude, although, you might if you're me. And the answer is that it's like, I know that I'm going to be using the Active Directory module. So if I know that I'm going to be using the Active Directory module, it makes sense to go ahead and import the silly thing, okay? If I don't know that I'm going to use it or I don't anticipate using it, then obviously it doesn't make sense to import the module. Now, why am I saying this? Well, PowerShell 3 does automatic module import. By default, you can turn that off, which I do not recommend, but you can. But the thing is that gets to be just a little bit slow. So if I use a commandlet, and I need a parameter or something, then we got to go look up the module, then find it and load it. And I say a little bit slow. I mean, it's not like real slow. But if I specifically know I'm going to use the module, then just go ahead and import the silly thing. Okay, so I've imported the module. Now, so I've got the module. Now what I want to do is I'm going to query Active Directory, and I'm going to get a listing of all my computers. Now I could do this by I could tab through here. Yeah, but I mean, there's like a lot of commandlets and stuff that are in this module. So generally I do just a little bit more. I'll say like ADC to get me to a computer. And that seems to work pretty well. So get AD computer. Now, I'm just going to do a filter, and I'm interested in all my computers. So I'm going to say just do a star. Now, how do I have get AD computer on my laptop? Well, I'm running Windows 8, and I've installed the RSAT tools, for Windows 8, the remote server admin tools. When I do that, then then it installs the Active Directory module on my computer. I recommend doing this. If you're a network administrator and you need to do anything with Active Directory, such as ever query Active Directory for a user or computer, then since we're talking about best practices, I consider it to be a best practice that you go ahead and install the RSAT module for your machine. And it just makes it so much simpler, so much easier for you as an admin tool. Now, of course, I can do implicit remoting and some other stuff, or I can do explicit remoting. But it's like, dude, that's adding an extra layer of complexity that I don't need. I've found this to be so much nicer and so much easier to just have direct access to these Active Directory commandlets on my machine. That's the same thing with the Hyper-V commandlets and the other stuff. So we get access to these when I install the RSAT tools on my laptop. Okay, so get AD computer, filter, groovy. I press enter. And we can see that now it goes off and we get back a listing of all the computers. Now, one of the things to keep in mind here is that when I do this, I only get back a subset of the properties. You can see that there's a whole bunch of properties. You can see that there's just a few properties here. The name, the object class, the SID, DNS host name, and some other stuff. That's it. Those are my most basic properties for the computer. Now, anybody that has spent more than half a minute, with the Active Directory using computers tool, or if you're like me, edit, then you can see that there's a whole lot more properties there. Now, I could choose a specific property if I wish, or I could just use a wildcard. So what happens then is, just like if I was querying from VBScript or PowerShell and I was doing any kind of an ADO query or an LDAP query, I have to specify the properties I want. Well, it's the same thing here. We do this for performance reasons. So I can say properties, wildcard, and say groovy. We press enter, and now we're getting all of the properties that are related, and I press Control-C to stop it. So you can see now that there's a whole bunch of properties that's here. Now, you can also see that this is out and out wasteful of network bandwidth and domain controller CPU time to return all of this stuff if I'm not planning on using it. Okay, so when I was in the Navy and I went to boot camp, they had we were able to go through the chow line, the chow hall, and you could get any kind of food you wanted and as much as you wanted, which is really cool because back then when I was like 19 years old, I was a chow hound. Actually, I still am. But anyway, the cool thing is you could just get as much food as you wanted to. The bad thing is you had to eat it all. So they had a sign that said, "Take all you want, but eat all you take." And that's a pretty darn good best practice, for getting information out of Active Directory, man. Take as much information from there as you want, but dude, use it. Don't be wasteful. Don't go off and bring a whole bunch of stuff back if you're not going to use it. Yeah, and that's actually what I did right here. Now, for my domain, for my network, it's not a huge deal because there's not that much stuff here. But dude, I mean, suppose that I did this on the Redmond domain, using my laptop that's connected to CorpNet. I'm going to be getting a phone call really quick, from some poor net admin, whose bandwidth just got swallowed up by an elephant. So like, dude, so be careful with this. Realize what you're doing, think about it, think ahead. And if you're only interested in a couple of properties, then just query those couple of properties. Okay. Now, as a matter of fact, what I do want to do is I do want this operating system property right here. Okay, and so so I could select this. I just press enter, puts it on my clipboard, and I'm going to come back over here and I'm going to paste that. So now I got the extra property that I wanted, which was my operating system. And I didn't eat an elephant. I didn't trample on the network bandwidth. I wasn't rude and wasteful of these network resources or anything. And I just got the information that I wanted. So cool. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to store this in a variable. And I recommend this as a best practice, both as being a good corporate citizen, but also, as a PowerShell best practice, because, if this is a query that I'm going to use, this is something that I'm going to do from time to time, then go ahead and store it in a variable. I don't think that computers, on my network anyway, I mean, we're not adding new computers, like every 5 minutes or something. So storing this in a variable, call it $CN, is equal to groovy. That doesn't hurt a thing. Now, what I want to do is show you one of my absolute favorite, Windows PowerShell 3.0 tips and tricks. This is actually kind of funny. So I was talking with Jeffrey Snover a while back, and he asked me, he says, hey, what's your favorite thing in PowerShell 3? And I told him it's what I call the automatic for each, or automatic property expansion. So I can say $CN dot name and press enter, and I get back a listing of all of the names. And he looked at me and he's like, because he was thinking that I was going to say my favorite, PowerShell 3 feature might be workflow, or PowerShell web access, or the SIM, the common information model, one of the big ticket, big flag name type of features in PowerShell 3. And I said, those things are cool, they're great, I use them, but this syntax right here, of just having a collection of objects stored in a variable and then coming around and being able to access any property out of that collection by just saying $CN.name, is something that I use every single day, multiple times a day, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 24,000 times a day, depending on how busy I am. And this is a really, really cool feature. Now, could I do that? Could I get this information in 2.0 or 1.0? Of course. I mean, you do a for each, you walk through it, and you store the stuff back in a variable. No big deal. And I've read that code hundreds of hundreds and hundreds of times. But this, it just makes it so simple. It makes it easier for me, working interactively at the command prompt, or the PowerShell prompt, and this is what I want. So, so what I've done so far, I've been talking a lot, but what I did is I used get credential. I stored my credentials in a variable. Then I imported my Active Directory module. I used get Active Directory computer to get all of my computers. I also picked out the operating system variable, and I stored this in the operating system attribute, and I stored this in a variable $CN. So this now gives me a listing of all of my computer names. So I'm going to clear the screen. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to use, I'm going to create a sim session. So I'm going to say new sim session. And once I do this, and I'm going to specify the computers that I want. Well, this is in the $CN.name. So that's the name of all of my computers. Okay? My credentials are stored in a variable. Okay. Now the other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to say I don't want to see the errors because what I'm doing now is I queried Active Directory for every single computer that's in the that's in my network. And some of those computers are not turned on. Some of them are down-level operating systems and stuff. And so, so an error would generate. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new sim session and connect to every single one of these dudes. So I'm going to say groovy. It's going to go off. It's going to take just a little bit of time to create these sim sessions. Okay, it's still going off and still connecting. Come on, it shouldn't take this long. There we go. All right, cool. All right. I guess it needed to take just that long. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use $sim, and I'm going to look and see what sim sessions were actually created. And we can see that there were three of them. Now one of the things that's actually cool is I can say computer name, and I can see that these are the three computers that I have actually created a sim session to these remote machines. And so now what I want to do is I want to do a query and using this. So I'm going to say get sim instance, and I'm going to say sim session $sim. And that should have worked. Why did it do that? That should have worked. That's weird. Oh, well, never mind. I know what it was. I did them out of order. Class name's what I forgot. So we're going to query Win32_BIOS, specify my sim session $sim, and there we go. Now I got an error on one of these, and matter of fact, it's on DC1, which happens to be a 2008 server. So it's not running the it's not running PowerShell 3. So it's just down level. Now, so we can see that we made our connection, and so we've got the name We get back our BIOS information. Now, one of the nice things about this is that when I use get sim instance, then it automatically adds this property here for PS computer name. So I can see that I got my information back from WDS1 and from Hyper-V 2. Now, if I want to hide the errors, then I can just say error action 0, and that hides that piece of information. Now, I'm working interactively at the PowerShell console. Yeah, so I'm not writing the perfect script. I'm not writing a script at all. This is just something that I need to do, to find this information out. So, for instance, I may need to find some information about the operating system. And so it comes back, and it's Windows Build 9200. We've got our version number, 6.2, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, our serial numbers, our registered user information, and all of that. If I want to, I can use this just like anything else. So I can send it to format list and get this information back like this. Come through here, we can see the physical memory, the amount of paging space, the last boot up time. Now, take a look at this right here. Now, this is actually really cool. Notice that on this computer, that WDS1, that my last boot up time was January the 8th, 2013. On this other server down here, which is Hyper-V, the last boot up time was June the 16th, 2013. Now, that's actually pretty cool. Now, you guys might not see this as being really cool. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drop down. I'm going to use getWMyObject. And I'm going to specify the class as Win32 underscore operating system. Specify the computer name. And here I'm just going to use $cn.name. And I'm going to say Groovy. Now, this time we're going to go back and we're going to query. We'll also pick up that DC1 computer if the firewall holes are open. Because I know, yeah, this is going to take a while, actually, because what we've done here is there's going to be a number of computers that are not available. So that's the listing of all of my computers on the network, many of which are not running. So let's see if I can kill this. Control-C, Control-C. This would be where I would just open up another PowerShell window, but I hate to because we're doing the presentation. But this actually kind of shows up another problem, because when we're using classic WMI, then we're going over here, we're making these remote procedure calls and stuff, and if a computer's not up and running, then sometimes things kind of take a long time to time out. And using the sim commandlets, the commands are very, very fast, and the information comes back rather quickly. So let's, I'm not going to do that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to query DC1. Now we'll just do Hyper-V 2. Okay, and we're going to send this to format list with a star. And I want to show you the last boot time. So last boot up time is this. Now, anybody that has spent much time working with WMI, they're familiar with this. I mean, this is the kind of date that we got back from VBScript. The scripting guys wrote a function a long time ago that would parse this and translate it into something readable. Then in Windows XP, a WMI class was created that would help us to translate this to a normal time. In PowerShell, we actually have a method that will help to translate this. And so it looks something like this. So I'm going to store this in a variable. Just to use a throwaway variable. So I'm going to just say $A is equal to this. And then $A dot, and what we want to do, convert to date time. And then we say $A dot last boot up time. And that gives us our time. So, I mean, in PowerShell, I mean, this is so much nicer than it was in VBScript, because VBScript required at a minimum several lines of code, or at a minimum, copying and pasting the same function into all of your scripts. So this isn't too bad, but in PowerShell 3, using getSim instance, so getSim instance, Win32_operating system, and then the computer name of Hyper-V, and send this to format list. Then we can see, it goes ahead and it translates that date for me. So this is really, really cool. It's something that we added into my sim commandlets. Now, from if I was to say a PowerShell best practice, what I want to do is take a look at these last two lines here. So we've got getSim instance. We've got getWMyObject. You can see these are the same basic commands. So what you want to do in PowerShell 3 is change getWMyObject to getSim instance. It just works directly. That's all you have to do. It is a direct change. Now, of course, it assumes that you've got PowerShell 3 installed. And PowerShell 3 is installed automatically on Windows 8, Windows Server 2012. You can install PowerShell 3 on Windows 7, 2008 Server R2, and Windows Server 2008. Of course, there's service packs associated with those, but we'll go back down to Windows Server 2008 with this, and so you can download it, install it, and be able to take advantage of these sim commandlets that we have for working with this stuff. So the other thing that I've mentioned, is this is a whole lot faster than using the getWMyObject stuff, and the thing that really makes this important is once we've started using this sim. So I've created the sim session, and so there I got the operating system. Well, I also want my computer, so I can come back over here and I can change this to computer. And we get that information back. You can just see, that it's almost as fast as I can type that I can get this information. And boom, 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 boom. And this right here is going off and querying and pulling all of this stuff back, from Win32_process. And also notice here that when we do this, we get a nice output display, from the sim commandlets. If I was to try to do this using the getWMyObject, we're going to get back a lot of raw information, and it's just not going to look very nice. It's not going to work very, very well. Now, the other thing, though, that's actually really cool about this is that on Windows 8 and on Windows Server 2012, I also have access to a whole bunch of sim-wrapped functions. And I can use this same sim session over here. So, for instance, I have get disk. Have to give it a little bit more than that. There we go. Get disk. Specify the sim session. $sim. Boom. That's it. I didn't do my error action 0 because I've still got that other computer in there. But anyway, so boom, boom, boom. So we get our information back. Now, one of the things, I'm getting tired of my sim session having this old computer in there that I can't really query, I can't really use. So what I want to do then, I'm going to go back to $CN. And if so what I want to do then is I want to create a sim session, that only has my my computers that are Windows Server 2012. So I can say $CN, and then I can pipe this to where operating system matches 2012. And we can see that now I've got back my computers, my servers that are all Windows Server 2012. And this is because I picked up that operating system property. Now this is another feature in Windows PowerShell 3 that I really like, that I enjoy using. And that is right here, what I call a simplified where clause. So the question mark is the alias for the where object. And in PowerShell 2 and PowerShell 1, we had to do curly brackets, $_ blah, 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 in order to get this. So it would actually be this syntax over here. And it works. I mean, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that syntax. But you can see that that's a lot more typing than this. And so now this gives me all of my servers that are 2012. So I'm going to store this back in a variable. And I'm just going to call this $C is equal to this. And so if I $C.name, then I've got my names of all of my 2012 servers. So now I'm going to up arrow a few times. And if I don't miss it, then all I'm going to do is I'm going to change my sim thing here to $C.name. And I'm going to overwrite my sim session that I had. Wait a little bit. It's going to go off. It's going to create new sim sessions. We're going to store those sim sessions in the $CIM variable. And then we will have only our Windows Server 2012 servers here. Now this makes it so cool, and it makes it so easy to use in an interactive fashion. Now certainly I could write a script that would go off and use test connection, or ping or something, and try to see if the servers are online, and if they're online, if they're talking, and all that junk. But dude, all I need to do is just say $sim. Okay, there's the ones that are talking. That's it. Everybody else is turned off, gone to sleep, they're on holiday or whatever. These are the two that are up and running. So that's it. These are the ones that I'm going to use. And so now I go back to get sim instance. Just say 132. Just BIOS again, and then my sim session is $sim and groovy. Notice that now it comes back really quick. I don't even need the error action anymore because that old 2008 box is not in my connection of servers anymore. So that's why I picked up my operating system property when I did the query to Active Directory, because I knew that I would want to filter it out and use it later. Now I could do the same thing to pick up my 2008 or my Windows 8 laptops or computers that are on the network, or all of my 2008 R2 boxes, or anything that I wanted to. I could filter out by OS by come over there and doing this. So now let's go back and say get disk, and my sim session is $CIM. And I press enter, and you can see that the information comes back almost immediately. So those are disk. What about volumes? And see how quickly this comes back. How about partitions? Oops. That's one of the things about having so many commandlets and functions, is that tab expansion kind of like, throw you a curve every once in a while. But I mean, just see how fast this is. And the reason this is so quick is because I already have a sim session that is open and is connected to these machines. Now, the other thing that's so great about this is that we're not building it up and tearing it down, building it up and tearing it down, like we were when we were using getWMyObject. This is just a standard sim session. It's opened up and everything's groovy. Now, the other thing is, notice my protocol, Whizman. That is the same protocol that I used for PowerShell remoting that we implemented in PowerShell 2.0. So WinRM, Whizman. The nice thing is that is one single port, and that one single port is open, and automatically on Windows Server 2012, because we automatically turn on PowerShell remoting on Server 2012. On Windows 8, we do not turn on by default PowerShell remoting. You can enable it. On the others, we don't turn it on there, but on 2012 we do. That means it just automatically works. You stand the box up, you can immediately talk to it, everything's groovy. So, is there any questions about this so far?
And assuming you don't have to go to a down-level server, is there any reason you'd still want to use the WMI instead of SIM?
No, there's not, and so that's why I say, as a best practice, you should just quit using getWMyObject and start using getSimInstance. It's a direct replacement. Now, the other thing is I can even use getSimInstance and specify that I want to use a downloadable protocol, so I can still use DCOM, if I wish. To talk to that 2008 box that's over there. So I can even use getSimInstance to do this. Now, let me show you something else that we can do that's really cool with our sim commandlets. So I'm going to clear my screen, and so I'm going to say, get sim class, and I'm going to specify that I'm interested in a class that has something to do with BIOS. That's one of the things that annoys me is we call this class name for getSim class and getSimInstance, and and it just should be like name, I think, but so it kind of like fakes me out sometimes. Okay, so I can use some wildcards here for the class name, and I can search and I can find my WMI classes. Now, so if I'm interested in something to do with the BIOS, then I can just say class name, BIOS, and we come back and we can see that there's a number of classes here. Now, we automatically know we can't use all of these classes. Matter of fact, we know probably know that we only want dynamic classes. And when we do this, then it comes back and we have Win32 BIOS and Win32 System BIOS. Now, System BIOS is an association class because it relates BIOS to computer systems. And so all these others are abstract classes. So I can say abstract. And we can see these are the ones we can't use. WMI does not support querying an abstract class, so we want to query dynamic, so we can do that there. Now, the other thing is pretty cool is I can say, so I want a property that has something to do with threads. And so when we do this, we come back and we find that there's a whole bunch of stuff here. So we've got like thread trace, thread start, process thread, and all of that. So the getSim class commandlet is very useful for helping you to explore WMI. Maybe I'm interested in something to do with a codec. So come over here and I'll type codec. So I didn't find one that had a property name of codec, so we're just going to come over here, hit this, and we find 132_codec file that will give me stuff related to my codecs and stuff. So this can be very, very useful for helping us define the appropriate WMI class. Now, in Windows 8 and in Windows Server 2012, we wrapped hundreds of these WMI classes up into SIM functions. And so this makes these things very easy and user-friendly. So, for instance, 132 volume is wrapped by get volume. 132_logical disk is wrapped by get disk and stuff. So these things are there. Now to find these, one of the things that I do is I like to get all of my modules. So I'm going to say get module, and I'm going to say list, and this will list all of the modules that we've got available on the computer. And you can see there's quite a few. How many are there? Well, I'm going to measure them. There's 78 modules. So now I'm going to import all of those. And say groovy. So it goes off and it imports all of the modules. And so now we'll have all of these modules here. Now the next thing that we want to do is we're going to look for the functions that are exposed by these. So we've got that. So now I'm going to say get command. And I'm going to look for the member type. Function. And you can see that there's a whole bunch of functions here. And you can see that they come in all different flavors from, so we've got DNS server, DNS client, we got remote access, we got scheduled tasks, storage, networking, printing, all kinds of stuff. I mean, it's just absolutely crazy. For the number of these, and these are all functions. Most of these are actually SIM functions, that have been wrapped. If we take a look at the number of those, then there's 1,100 of them. So there's an awful lot. Now, the things that are easy to use. So let's look at verbs. And all of these things are things that have get. But notice that this returns commandlets as well as functions that all have these verbs of get. So how many things can I get? Well, I'm going to pipe this to measure object. And I can get 592 things, which is actually pretty cool. Now, so what I want to do then is I want to get some stuff that might actually be pretty cool. So for instance, you come down here to stuff related to Windows. So for instance, I got get Windows driver. Now these DISM commandlets are actually really, really, really cool. So I'm going to specify the module. So these are things that I can get using DISM. Now, a lot of times, we think, oh, well, DISM is dismal. I'm not sure how to use that, and it's actually pretty easy. So I can say get Windows Edition, and I press enter, and it whines. And the reason that it whines is because that it's looking for either a package, an image, or, and this is the trick, online. And so if I want to do it online, yeah, then this actually works pretty cool. But the problem is that this says that this operation requires elevation. Well, can I use my sim stuff to do this? So can I specify a sim session? And the answer is no, it doesn't like that. So I can type get command or help. And we do not, so we got our logging levels, we got our log path, scratch directory, blah, 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 but we do not have anything that lets me do sim. So it's like, bummer, what do we do now? Well, what we do now is that we create a PowerShell session, a remote session. So if we go back over here to where we were using our C. So these are our computers, our 2012 computers. So those are all my 2012 computers. So what I want to do is I'm going to create a WMI, a PS remoting session. So I'm going to say new PS remoting session, PS session. I'm going to specify my computers, $C.name, specify my credentials. Now this is using the same protocol that I used when I did my sim commandlets. My credentials are $CRED, still the same. And then now let's store this in $PS as a variable here. I'm going to go ahead and specify my error action because I know that only about a couple of those are going to work, and I say groovy. So we go off, we create a new PowerShell session using this. And so now I say invoke command. Well, let's test it first, $PS. There we go. We're available, we're open. So now I say invoke command. And this time I'm going to specify a session, specify my script block, which means I had to use curly brackets, and it's get Windows Edition. Get Windows Edition online, and then I say groovy. And so it comes back, and we can see that the computers are WDS1 and Hyper-V1, and the edition is Data Center Edition on both of those. So that's how I can run a command against a remote machine, even if I don't know. Even if I don't have a parameter for computer name or for something like that. Now, notice that we've also got other stuff here. We got get Windows image, get optional feature, get package, and stuff like that. Get the Windows driver. And we could run all of those exactly the same way. So I can come back here and say get Windows driver, for instance. And it goes off and it queries, it brings back my information about the drivers on these remote machines. And the nice thing is that we add this PS computer name parameter automatically so that it actually makes sense, and I can compare these things and do some other stuff. Now, if I'm going to process this, then I'm going to just see $D is equal to, because I don't want to keep running this command over and over and over again. So now I can say $D, and I can group by PS computer name. And so it comes back, and we've got this. So now we've got our grouping here. By computer name, or maybe what I want to group is by provider name. And so we can see, how these are. Now, interesting enough, there's one from Intel, one from this elaborate bytes people. So this is telling me that that these drivers are unique to a specific computer if I wanted to. So I can then come in and I can say select name, PS computer name, or provider name rather. And press enter. And so we get this. And then the other thing is we also want to know the file, the published name, or something like that. So you can see that we can sort this out, and we can see that Elaborate Bytes is installed on WDS1, and the Intel was installed on Hyper-V 2. And we could dive into that to get more information if we needed to. So by using this, by using PowerShell remoting that was available to us in 2.0, using the sim commands and stuff that are available to us in 3.0, by tying it in, and using like the modules that are available for us, from the RSAT tools, then we can do some very, very powerful analysis, stuff that would have required scripting, even in PowerShell 2.0, and now it's just as easy as just sitting down, typing a few little commands, and working your way through it. So any questions or comments?
A couple people typing.
Okay.
That sounds good.
Okay, well, basically that's about it. So hope that you guys learned something, and that you found the time useful and productive, and a nice way to spend the evening instead of body surfing down in Florida or something. Yeah, I'd rather do PowerShell than body surf any day.
I won't comment on that.
I said me, not you. When I was your age, Maximo, I probably would have spent the time body surfing.
Oh, thank you for telling me I'm young. Yeah, well, this is great. This is great. If you wanna, what's up, man? What's up? What's going on out there, David? You have anything to ask or take advantage that we have Mr. Ed Wilson here?
I heard some chatter about on the blogs for Tech Ed. You've been asked about Scriptmatic 3.
Yeah, there was a lot of. I was actually really, really surprised at the. And I actually put this in the Scripting Guy blog. I was surprised at the number of people that came by asking me about Scriptmatic version 3.0. I sort of did that because I wrote PowerShell Scriptmatic like 4 or 5 years ago. I did it in C#, and I did it specifically to emulate what we had with Scriptmatic 2.0. But so many people are coming by asking about this, and to me, with having the sim commandlets especially, I didn't feel that I needed this for discovery or anything. But a lot of people seem like they still want it. So I don't know, if I get some time, and I'm not committing to anything, but if I get some time, I'm thinking about going ahead and writing another PowerShell Scriptmatic. But what I think I'll do is I'll add it in as an add-on to the PowerShell ISE, so that when I'm in the ISE, if I wanted to look up a PowerShell commandlet or something, that I could be able, launch it, and be able to get it that way. So I may do that. That's kind of what I'm thinking about on it, but I'm certainly not committing to anything because I've got a lot of other stuff that I need to do, that I want to do. For instance, I'm planning a series of scripting guy articles about using PowerShell Web Access. I mean, that's kind of a stealth feature that we brought out in PowerShell 3, and like almost nobody has talked about it. And it's like, dude, why? I mean, because to me it's something that just it's powerful. And if I was a net admin, I'd definitely be setting it up, so that I could use it. I mean, because it's cool. It's free. It's in the box. I mean, I don't know why people wouldn't want to use it. So I'll probably write some stuff about that. So I know that that's on my list. I've got a couple of other ISE add-ons that I'm wanting to do, that I haven't done yet. So once I get around to that point and get the stuff that's kind of like on my backlog done, then then I may get around to doing that. Of course, that's assuming that PowerShell 4 hadn't shipped by then, So but